Hello, and welcome to our third night of this Proctor virtual experience. My name is Hunter Churchill. I am a Senior Associate Admissions Officer. I am also a Proctor alum of 2001. I live on campus with my 4 kids. Quick shout out to that group. Hopefully they're being easy on mom tonight. But we're going to jump into a session with some students that's really going to focus on off-campus programming. And following that session, we're going to pull in some recent graduates, something we've never done before, for another panel, and that will start up at around 7:30 tonight. So at this point, let's dive into off-campus programs. So really, now that you've gone so far in the admissions process, we definitely understand that you probably know that we send kids off campus. You might even be attracted to a few of our off-campus programs in particular. But really, after tonight, I think we're just hoping that you'll get a further understanding of really how it all works, from the planning to the scheduling, to how does it fit into the college process, or how do you fit studying in Spain and France into your high school experience. And so we're going to cover hopefully some of that, but most importantly, I think this is about really how this impacts our students, right? It's really all about students. And so really what's important to know is that Proctor's seen the value of global education, really through cultural experience and in full immersion for a really long time. So this isn't something that we just invented overnight. It's really a big part of who we are, and it's really deeply rooted into this school. It's deeply rooted into the people of the place. And it really is a part of the Proctor magic that's been around for really over 30 years. It's pretty hard to believe that we've had students staying with homestay families in Segovia, Spain since 1974. It really is quite remarkable. And even more remarkable is that some of our homestay families have been with us really from the beginning. But I also we can't really go through, right into talking about the programs with the students without just giving a little bit more of an overview. And so I do want to cover just a few facts, and just it's good to understand that up to really 33 students will be off campus every term at Proctor over the course of the year. So that's about 90 students who study abroad a year, and we also have a stat that's roughly about 70% of our kids graduating will have taken advantage of at least one of these programs. 5 of these term-long programs are fully funded through boarding tuition, which is important to know, and classes are fully accredited. And it all kind of boils down to the idea that it's fully integrated into the school. And it's deeper than that too. It's not just integrated into who we are and our curriculum, but our students, when they go on these programs, are really fully integrating into the places they go. It's not about going on European Art Classroom and being a tourist around Europe. It's more about how do you live like a local, how do you shop in the local markets, and really get a deep understanding of the place. So it's also important to know that kids plan for this through the 4-year plans. And so every new student to Proctor, whether you're starting as a 9th grader, 10th grader, 11th grader, you essentially fill out a 4-year plan, which just gives you an opportunity to fill in some gaps. Like, I want to go on Ocean Classroom my junior year. I want to go to Segovia, Spain, my senior year, and allows for that planning. So none of these things, none of these trips just happen on a whim. They're really planned for and looked really closely at for each individual. And so the way that I'd like to work this, and our panelists have been so gracious to say yes, is to basically to let them introduce let them introduce basically a program as they introduce themselves. And before we get there, I want to also extend this out to really all of our off-campus programs. So starting from orientation, wilderness orientation when you first started school, to our summer service trips, one at the Rosebud Reservation in South Dakota, another in Guatemala, programs that have been running for a long time and are really relationship-based summer service trips to project period and senior projects, and another program where we do send students to China, that really kind of mirrors with our Mandarin program on campus, but that's a program that goes every other year. But so when you're thinking about questions to ask our panelists, definitely include some of those. And so without any further ado, I think what I'd like to do is pull Tommy Harrell onto the screen, and Tommy's going to introduce himself, and he's also going to give us an overview of Mountain Classroom.
Everyone can hear me. Still kind of learning the whole technology piece of this, but I'm a 4-year senior from Sunapee, New Hampshire, and I went on Mountain Classroom my junior spring. And other than that, I've been part of the Eastern Ski team for 4 years, and my brother and I also started a volunteer program in which we go over and read to students at the local elementary school. And so basically what Mountain Classroom is 9 or 10 weeks, you and 9 other students and 2 instructors and a van and a trailer, and you travel from coast to coast, and do like really experiential learning along the way. Learning is completely based on your location, and whether it be culturally or geographically, or you look into where you are really, and so you're traveling and you're experiencing for 10 weeks, and it's absolutely incredible. And so the 4 classes that you take are expedition skills, science, English, and social science. And for me, the two most interesting ones on the trip were science and English, and mostly because the science, it was right in front of us every day. It was, whether it was learning about the geology of the Southwest and going and actually picking up these rocks and exploring for stuff. It was science class was just really hands-on, and then I found English fascinating too, because when we were in the Southwest, which is where you spend usually 3 or 4 weeks on the trip, we were able to read some of the great works of some of the American Southwest authors like Edward Abbey. Um, and so, yeah, the trip is essentially, it's besides teaching us, the instructors really are kind of hands off, and the students are running the trip. So each day you have a chore, whether that be cooking the meals for everyone in the group, or leading the day and planning the activities, and waking all your friends up really early in the morning to go out and explore wherever you are. So it's I mean, there's a great deal of independence on the trip, and it's an incredible experience. So halfway through, one of the things to note is, halfway through, each student goes on a 4-day solo, um, 4 days, 3 nights, and it's really challenging, but it's kind of a time halfway through the trip to recalibrate and kind of um, explore yourself with nothing else. So the whole trip you have no cell phones, but then also on your solo, you're not allowed to bring anything but, your food and your tarp, and your thoughts, and you kind of just you have to. It's just a really good reflective process, and so that's definitely one of the most well-known things on the trip. And then also near the end of your trip, once your group is really bonded and the instructors send you off on something called ISG, which is essentially a week planned all by the students, where you go for a week-long backpacking trip um, without the instructors, or they follow behind, but they're usually about a mile or two behind, and so you're doing everything by yourself, um, and it's a surreal experience to be able to travel the country over 10 weeks, and I just absolutely loved it.
All right, that's great. Thanks, Tommy. We're gonna keep moving on, and we're gonna invite PJ Shaw to the screen, and PJ will introduce herself and give us an overview of Ocean Classroom.
Hi everyone. All right, so my name is PJ. I'm a four-year senior and I am from Bow, New Hampshire. I play field hockey and lacrosse for Proctor, and I also am on the Eastern ski team. And during my junior fall, I decided to go on Ocean Classroom, and it is a 9-week voyage, and we started in Boston and sailed up to Maine, and then we went all the way down to Puerto Rico. But so I chose Ocean Classroom because it was extremely out of my comfort zone, and because I've always been in the mountains, and everybody that I had talked to before about it was just like, you have to go. It is the most life-changing experience that you will ever have. And like, what schools as like in high school offer this type of experience where you're getting credits while you're away for the semester, and like you don't have to like, you can just come right back in during the winter and just like um fit back in with everybody and not have to make up any like other classes and stuff. So I thought it was a very unique experience, and I definitely took the most of it and went. And so on the boat, you study navigational skills, marine biology, maritime literature, maritime history, and seamanship skills as well. Um, and I think that it is the coolest thing ever because, I mean, you're on the boat studying on deck, and you're with like 20 other kids who are all in school with you. So you have really, like, you know, all of them really, really well by the end of the voyage. And you're on deck studying like marine biology, and you can literally just like look over the side of the deck, and you're just like looking at dolphins swimming next to you, and like like it looks like they're smiling at you. It's so cool. And to be in that kind of environment, especially with other 20 other people, or well 19 other people who want to be there, that are like your age, like at your school, might have a totally different background, but you're all there connected and over the most like the most amazing places that you'll ever see. I think that that is something that, as a high schooler, to be able to have that experience is unheard of. And I think it definitely changed my like it definitely changed me as a human, and it was the most crucial learning point and growing point for me at Proctor. Um, and I have like left Ocean Classroom with like brothers and sisters and relationships that were like will never ever go away. So but so while we were going down to Puerto Rico, we make port stops. So we're usually sailing for a week nonstop, and then we'll stop along the coast. And I mean, we had, I think, 9 ports or 8 port stops along the coast. And so I mean, my personal favorite was Savannah, Georgia. And we go in, we explore the cities usually with the whole entire group, and go to a bunch of like historical sites, talk to local people down there, and do a lot of interviews with local people as well. We always make sure to be really educated about the history of the port that we are going into. So and then we hear about all these different sites and stuff, and then once we're there, we can actually like we can see like where like the history has come from, which was really really cool for me. And you just get to meet really cool people along the way, and learn about like different type of industries that you never would have really found yourself having like an interest in before, and we also get to work with or learn about and talk to and work with some of the Navy and like be aboard like their battleships too when you're down in Virginia, which was unbelievable. It was really cool. But I think that the greatest thing was just being out in the ocean and being like in the middle of the ocean, where you can't see any land, and just being with yourself and being with your peers and being with the like captain and crew. I think that you build incredible relationships, and also you build such a work ethic. And it's, I just like, if anybody here is like looking at off-campus programs, and that's what's drawing them to Proctor, I think that Ocean should go at the top. I think it is the best program that they have to offer, and I think that they do a really, really, really good job um, running it, and they have for a very long time. And I see a question on the side that says, "How much time do you spend in Puerto Rico?" It depends for each group. For my group, it was only a few days because we had a lot of stall on the coast because of the U.S. on the coast in Georgia because of hurricanes. But I mean, like, you can talk to Chloe McKechnie, who will also talk later, and she was in Puerto Rico island hopping down there for like a week and a half or like even longer. So it just depends on what year you go and the weather, and there's not really much you can do. You can't fight the ocean, that's for sure. But and then no, you do not have a phone or a camera. Well, you can bring a camera, but you don't have your phone, which I thought was the most also a really important aspect to the whole entire thing, because you're not like on your phone or like detached from anywhere else but like where your feet are and who you're with, which again is really important for the bonds and the friendships that you make there. And the boat that you're sailing on is a little under 100 years old, and it is beautiful, and it's 137 feet. And then I'm reading more questions. I don't know if
PJ,
I'm a good hunter.
I might stop you with the questions because
Okay, that's fine.
what we're going to do is we're going to introduce all the programs and panelists, and then we'll just dive deep into those questions. So, yeah, I think what we'll do is we'll move on to the next person. But thank you, PJ. And so we're now going to introduce Jane, and Jane is also going to talk to us a little bit about Proctor and Segovia.
Hi everyone, I'm Jane Ellis, and I'm from Gloucester, Massachusetts. I've been on Costa Rica, Mountain, and Spain in my time at Proctor, and on campus and hockey, and I used to play field hockey, but now I do cross country. And I'm also the fifth one of my siblings to come to Proctor, so that's really been an incredible experience to follow in their footsteps. We all went on Proctor and Segovia, which is an incredible program. So it's 2 months and it runs fall, winter, and spring. Host family. I lived with an 85-year-old woman named Juana, and two of my sisters had stayed. And she was just the sweetest woman. She would force feed me paella, and it was just an incredible experience. We would stay up until 1 a.m. every night watching Spanish TV, and it was really fun living with her. So day to day, we go to class, walk to school, and then we have a Spanish class and an English, and the English and history classes are both Spanish based. So we learned the history of Spain, which I thought was really incredible doing in Segovia, because first of all, we had so much history right around us. The castle in Segovia was built in 1120, so that was really, really cool to go visit. The cafes would memorize our orders, and we really, really got to feel like locals. Another part of Spain that I really liked was we would go on excursions. My favorite, I think, was Barcelona. We Sagrada Familia and visit the Picasso Museum and just wander around a city that's definitely different than Segovia. Segovia is pretty small. So sorry, back to day to day. So we would go to class, and then at about 1, we would go home and have lunch with our host families, and we would get to have 2 or 3 hours of siesta every day. We really got into the culture there. And then after that, afternoon activities to do. So I personally played tennis twice a week with another girl who was there. And the other few days a week, I go to the gym and do an art class, a metal art class with Jesus. He was a character. What else? Oh, I think I personally I love Spanish. I'm going to study it in college. And so I think I chose Spain just because of that. My siblings had done it and they all loved it. So I knew, and all my friends who had done it love it as well. So I knew that it was a good program to go on. And yeah, I would highly recommend it if you are.
Great. Thank you, Jane. I think you were breaking up on my end a little bit, and I think it's just a good reminder of just where we're at and making the best of the moment. And you'll be able to ask Jane more questions about Segovia. And if there was anything that you didn't hear and you were still thinking or you want to know about, definitely put those into the Q&A box because we are able to see that. So now I'd like to introduce Chloe, and Chloe's going to tell us a little bit about European Art Classroom.
Hey guys, I'm Chloe. I'm originally from Needham, Massachusetts, and I also went on Ocean Classroom, like PJ was saying. Tag and I actually got to spend our group. We went this fall and spent like a week. We got to plan out our own voyage around the USVIs, which was really cool because by then we had our own like skills to like map out like on the charts like where we wanted to go. But anyways, I also went on the China immersion trip in the summer because I love studying Mandarin. And as for European Art Classroom, I went last spring, and you can see the courses there. So basically, you live in a house with like 7 other students and 2 Proctor faculty, and you really become like such a family when you're there. You travel to 3 different countries. My group, we went to Vienna, Austria, Belgium, and Lisbon, Portugal. And so when you're at home in Aix-en-Provence, in like the south of France, you spend like your days getting like fresh market items like for picnics, and then you like paint in these like beautiful amazing fields, and like plein air painting with oil paint. And then you also have your own carnet de voyage, which is like a sketchbook you carry with you the whole time, and it becomes like your most prized possession because it's just all the memories and places you've been where you just like make little sketches on a little street you love and that sort of thing. And you bring that with you when you travel to the other countries. And it just becomes like a little memory. And it's also like graded, so that's part of the coursework. And also when you're traveling abroad or like traveling in other countries and in France, you go to a bunch like the most amazing museums I've ever been to. And when like what made me want to go on Euro was because I love art, but what I didn't know about myself is like how deep an appreciation I would have after for art history. And that was really cool because before I would just like go to a museum and be like, oh, like cool painting, but now it's like you just like respect the painting so much and everything. So that's like my favorite part. And you also cook a lot, and you cook dinner when you're home, and that's really fun because you do a lot of like Provençal like recipes, and you really you feel like you belong in Aix-en-Provence, because you take like the bus into town, that sort of thing, and go like shopping at the markets. And you also study French, but everything's like geared towards art. So yeah, it was amazing. um,
Great. Thank you, Chloe. And so now we're going to move on to Patrick, who's going to introduce himself and also introduce Proctor in Monteverde. Go ahead, Patrick.
Thank you, Hunter. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Patrick Duffy. I am currently a 2-year sophomore at Proctor Academy. I'm originally from New Jersey, but I moved up to Vermont this summer. And some things I like to do at Proctor are kayaking, ski jumping, and lacrosse. This winter, I had the fortune of going to Costa Rica. More specifically, we lived in the Monteverde region, which is well known for its nature reserves. I was with 4 other people. We all stayed in separate host families. I was lucky and got to stay with a chef, so I ate very well that trip. In terms of academics on a day-to-day basis, Proctor Academy collaborated with the Monteverde Institute, and at that institute, we would do all of our academic focus classes like math, Spanish, English history, and most importantly, Rainforest Ecology, which was probably one of the coolest classes I've done so far at Proctor. We went on a bunch of field trips all over Monteverde. We studied the plants and animals, the jungle. We learned about all the different rainforests and habitats. There's like 7 different rainforests in the tiny Monteverde area. It's amazing. Um, but also, we got to experience some of the activities that tourists would usually do on the weekends, such as zip lining and hiking through reserves. And we even went on a beach trip. Um, but Costa Rica, well, it was one of the reasons why I came to Proctor, um, just so I could go on the Costa Rica trip because I heard that it was such an amazing place and I wanted to try it out so bad. Therefore, I'm glad I did it. Um, Overall, it was perfect. It was one of the most amazing experiences of my entire life. And as I'm sitting here right now with rainy 46-degree weather, I wish I could be back, in all honesty. Um, so I hope if you guys come to Proctor Academy that you consider signing up for Costa Rica yourselves because it is a life changer.
Awesome. Thanks, Patrick. And now we have 2 more panelists who are hiding. Let's introduce Vienna first, and then we'll get to Tag.
Hi guys, I'm Vienna. I'm from Andover, New Hampshire. At Proctor, I play soccer, hockey, and lacrosse. I've also been a part of Green Key, so working with Hunter and admissions, and student government. As far as off-campus programs go, I went on Mountain Classroom my junior winter and European Art Classroom this winter, recently returned. And then the summer between my freshman and sophomore year, I went on the Guatemala service trip, which lasts about a week, 2 weeks, 2 weeks, traveling between La Limonada, which is a local city, and then also spending some more time in more rural areas.
Awesome. Thanks, Vienna. And Tag, go ahead.
Hi everyone, I'm Tag. I'm from Beverly Farms, Massachusetts. At Proctor, I am part of the theater and drama department. I was part of the Eastern Ski team, but recently switched to all theater and drama. And I'm also part of Green Key, along with Vienna and Hunter. And off-campus programs, I recently went on Ocean Classroom this fall. And then the summer between my freshman and sophomore year, I went to Proctor in China with Chloe. And we spent the whole month of July there. We flew into the capital of the Yunnan province, and we drove up to the city of Shangri-La, where we stayed in homestays, for 2 weeks, before we came back to the U.S. And then I also went on the Rosebud summer service trip this past summer, between my sophomore and junior year. And that is 10 days out on the Rosebud Reservation in South Dakota. And while you're out there, you're basically learning about the culture. You're attending sun dances, you're doing a bunch of community service, helping out, and you're camping in the backyard of Proctor's, uh, the White Hat's backyard, which the family that Proctor has had a really good relationship with for many years now.
That's great. Thanks, Tag. And so just a couple of notes. Up in the top corner of your screen, you can access the grid view, and that will put everyone front and center. The other thing is in the bottom right-hand corner, you should be able to access the Q&A section, and we have had a few questions come in, but definitely now is the time to start plugging some questions in, and we will do our best to work through them. But we do have a few questions that have already populated, and so I think one kind of hits on a few different things, but maybe we can start discussion just about like how many hours in the day do you feel like you're actually doing classes and work? How many days are, or how many hours are spent, being active, traveling? But maybe give us a little bit of background there from multiple programs if possible. Yeah, so we'll start with Vienna because she seemed to be the quickest.
Okay, so one thing that Proctor takes a lot of pride in is like our experiential learning. And so I'd just like to point out before there are answers that may be more specific, that on all of our programs, pretty much I would say 12 hours a day you're learning. On Mountain Classroom, which I went on my junior year, where we're driving across country, as Tommy mentioned, all hours of the day are learning. We'll be driving and they'll point out a certain mountain and be like, that is blah, 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 and then give us some facts. Or we'll be driving and they're like, we're going to plug in a 13-minute podcast on blah, 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 and, take some notes and we'll talk about it later. So, and also as Tommy mentioned, like the science class are like very much geology related because we're in the Southwest. And one cool thing will be like canoeing down the Rio Grande, and our instructor Quinn will be like, hey, that rock, like, or what layers of that rock are blah, blah, blah. And so everything, it's not necessarily you're sitting in a class, or it's not necessarily an assignment that you must turn in. It's like an opportunity to learn in each tiny moment of the day. And those learning moments also come in like cooking. So yeah, different things. It's not your typical sort of classroom.
Kind of just adding on to what Vienna said is the learning is more fluid on these off-campus programs rather than structured. And so I think she hit on it really well that it could, this learning is kind of spontaneous, but it pretty much happens all day. There's all different types of learning, and all different types of new skills that you're acquiring throughout the day. And so it doesn't really feel like you're ever going into class because you're kind of just having this incredible experience. You're just living it 24 hours a day.
Tag or Patrick, yeah, do you want to add on to?
Sure thing. The learning in off-campus programs is definitely different. What I've experienced is that the way you learn usually correlates with the culture of where you are. For example, in Costa Rica, people they like to take things slowly. You know, they're pretty laid back. Everything is pura vida. So because of that, the way my classes were structured is that we had longer classes, either 90 minutes or 2 hours, but it was um, definitely it was laid back and fluid and relaxed. There wasn't really any times where I felt overly stressed about academic focuses, which is the important part because when you're off campus, the point is to experience being where you are and not always worrying about your studies all the time.
That's great. And so we did have one question come in about the ability to do a program your freshman year or sophomore year. And I think just real quick, I'll clarify that Costa Rica is a program that is for sophomores. That's the first program that you can take advantage of. So there aren't any programs for freshmen, but Costa Rica for sophomores, and then Mountain Classroom, Ocean Classroom, Spain, and European Art Classroom are programs for rising juniors and seniors. And so part of that question too was if someone was to come in as a junior, is it possible to still do an off-campus program? Does anyone want to give a little more detail on that? Yeah, Vienna.
Sure. I'm not sure that any of us here came in later than our freshman or sophomore year, but we have plenty of friends who have come in as juniors or even post-grads, I believe, and have still gone on a trimester program at Proctor. Everyone there really wants you to be able to experience that, and I do believe there have been some who even go on one their junior year and one their senior year. Like I said, everyone wants you to. You're gonna have your advisor back you up, and there's something we do at Proctor called For Your Plans, and which you'll still do even if you're just a junior. And if you come saying, I want to do Ocean Classroom, I know I want to do Ocean Classroom, then they're really gonna help you and push you to do that.
That's great. Thanks, Vienna. Yeah, Chloe, go ahead.
Wei你这么样？
好，你呢？
很好。
You might have to clarify what you guys just did.
That was for Chris, but she just asked me like how I was. She said hi, she said my name, and then I said I'm good and said, how about you?
They got called out to talking Mandarin to each other. And I'd love to dive into this question about the Guatemala service trip. So anyone who's been to the Guatemala service trip, maybe just talk a little bit more about that experience, and then maybe it'd be good to hear about the Rosebud as well, so someone can think about that.
Yeah, so I was definitely sort of short-winded when I mentioned the Guatemala experience, because it was a long time ago for me. But I think every Guatemala summer service trip is different depending on sort of like the both environmental and political events at the time. I know that in past years it's been different than my experience. But for me, our first week, like I mentioned, we were in La Limonada, which is a huge city. Um, and for the first week, we were working in orphanages and schools with children. So we stayed in a home. There were 8 students in total and 3 faculty members. We stayed in a home together, and we would take the van each day to a different orphanage or school, and we were speaking Spanish with the students and teaching them lessons. I think my group was teaching them about flowers and the different parts of flowers and stuff. Typically younger kids, so we would spend the day there. We'd also do community service. They were building a newer school, so for one entire day we were doing a lot of painting and moving furniture into the school, just preparing it for the students. And then about the halfway mark after 1 week, we all traveled in a bus to the countryside of Guatemala, and we hiked a volcano, which was super cool. And then we went to a place called IMAP or EMAP, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, where they explained to us a lot of Guatemala's history. So we got to learn a lot about Guatemala's history, and then also a lot of like their environmental projects. And so there we got to plant avocado trees. We got to go swimming in this beautiful volcanic lake. We spent a lot of time just learning how to be resourceful and again speaking a lot of Spanish. So
All right, that's great. And so we're gonna jump into a mountain classroom question. Somebody is wondering, is there a difference between the winter and spring curriculum? And I can't remember if there's a difference in terms of what you guys have all experienced. But I don't know if there's someone who's been on winter and then someone who's been on spring who could kind of talk a little bit about their curriculum and experience.
Yeah, so really the main difference between the winter and the spring is that the winter travels from Proctor out west and then flies back, and then spring group flies out west and then travels all the way back to Proctor. And that's just logistically because to have a bus, if we couldn't go both, they would have to drive all the way back and then start at Proctor again and then drive out and go all the way back. And that's really the main difference.
Great, great. And then there's a question out there of what's the application process like? And maybe you can talk about the process, but also like what it was like for you, and how you got to the place of choosing different programs. And I don't know, I saw a couple of hands, but it's anyone can go.
Okay, so the application process, they announce it to the school in front of everybody and they say what the dates are and who to give it into. And it's usually you print it out or you can like type out your essay, but it's usually a question, like a different series of questions, like why did you choose, why do you want to like experience like ocean classroom or mountain classroom or European art classroom, like what will you bring to the group, because they are very like not very competitive. Yeah, they're pretty competitive to get into because a lot of people want to go on them. And then they just ask you a series of questions of like what do you want to get out of the experience? What are you looking forward to most, like if you go on the experience? But usually you do write a pretty like not length, a good amount of like a good amount of paper to explain like why you want to go on this off-campus program and who pushed you or like what factors are pushing you to go on to it. But and I mean everybody typically has their own reason to go on off-campus programs, but I think it's definitely pushed by our on campus by everybody, especially people who are getting back from off-campus programs, especially onto like younger like freshmen or sophomores, and being like you should really experience like ocean or you would be perfect for it. So I mean it's really praised upon in our community to be applying to these programs. And yeah, usually you hear back, I don't know, like how much longer, like later, maybe by the end of the term. I have no idea, but you usually know your group by the end of winter for the next year.
Yeah, Patrick.
So the application process, it's a little different for each off-campus program. For example, when I did Costa Rica, only really freshmen can apply, as well as maybe sophomores who want to go in the spring term, I believe. But the way it works is you email the person who's in charge of Costa Rica classroom, say, hey, I'm interested. How do I apply? And then you can get all the application forms, all the paperwork. It can be sent to your parents, all that stuff, and you just write an essay explaining why you want to go on Costa Rica and why you would be a good fit. And sometime in January, you'll find out if you got on or not. And when I found out I got on, I was definitely very happy. Also finding out that I was going with one of my best friends too. Um, Definitely brightened up that gloomy winter snowy day for sure.
Excellent. And so we've also had a few questions about learning skills in off-campus programs. One was more geared towards, are there supports during these off-campus programs, and the other one is really just how you manage to do the work not being in learning skills if you're away from campus. Yeah, Vienna.
I did learning skills my freshman and sophomore year, and since then I haven't taken it. It was definitely something that was super powerful in prepping me to go off campus. But as far as learning off campus, I would say that it's a completely different environment. And so you're not the only one who may be struggling. You're in it with those 8 or 20 or 10 people. Because doing homework with a headlamp in the rain in your tent is hard for everyone. And also about support with every single, I think, ocean classroom, I don't know how many crew members you have. A lot, a dozen maybe, I don't know, to help you with 15, thank you. And then on mountain classroom, European art, you have 2 instructors with you, so they're a constant support. They're not only your instructors in your adventures, but they're your teachers, and they're around 24/7. So if you really wanted to go into their tent at 1 a.m. to ask a question, you really could. And same thing with European art classroom. You live with them. Again, you can ask them questions. They're a complete support. They're used to working with kids who may have dyslexia or ADHD. And then as far as Spain and Costa go, you're with host families who I'm assuming are willing to help as well.
Okay, so another point I want to make about ocean though is that you're constantly learning about the environment around you, not only like in your studies with like marine biology or like even astronomy, but you're learning all the ways of the boat and how to sail a boat. And by the end of the term, I mean, you know how to sail the boat with like your friends, and I think that's really cool. But you are with people 24/7 who are your age, are studying or and have the same exact homework that you have. And so I mean, like, you do work with them, and like you are very close with these people. So I mean, I think that everything you do is together, and I think that's a very big thing that Proctor emphasizes too, is like building those kinds of relationships, whether it's like with teachers who are like in who are your learning skills teacher, but also like taking that like relationship and applying it to the real world. Because I mean, you're not going to be in like learning skills like for the rest of your life, and you're not going to be able to just have that like time of your day, you know what I mean? So taking those skills that you do learn in learning skills or just in school or like growing like throughout Proctor is very, very important. And by the end of any off-campus program that you do, you will have those skills like hammered down, and you'll have like the like relationship side and like working with people and that kind of aspect hammered down too. So it's really cool.
That's great. That's great. Yeah, Chloe, do you want to add something? No.
Yeah, I just saw a question about how do you keep in touch with your family when you're in an ocean classroom. I just want to touch on that real quick. You send letters. You can send letters when you're in port, and you also get your phone once during the whole time to call your family and friends, which is such a weird experience after not having it for so long. But also one funny story is my friends and I were like, when you're in port, you get some free time to walk around. And it was like the first week or so, and my friends and I were so desperate to like talk to our moms and like dads. And so we found like this payphone and like put in quarters and called our parents, which was just like so funny because we were so like what is happening. But it's like a really good experience, and you become such, I think like the biggest thing out of these programs is like you become such a good leader, and that helps you so much coming back on campus and going forward.
Does anyone else want to talk about like not having tech on any experience and what that was like for them? Yeah, Jane.
Yeah, so can everyone hear me? Can you guys hear me? Okay. So on Mountain Classroom, we don't have our phones either, and we got 2 mail drops, which getting mail on and off campus program, like Mountain or Ocean, is the absolute best thing, hands down, because you haven't talked to your family, been in any contact with them, and spending a lot of time with friends is great, but it definitely, you miss your family. So that was such an incredible experience. Getting letters is just, I don't know, heartwarming. And then in the middle, we also get half an hour, I think it was, to call our families, which is very strange as well, as Chloe was saying. But it is really, like, I wouldn't have gotten as close as I did with the people on my mountain group if I'd had my cell phone with me. So I think it's a really important part of the off-campus programs.
I just would like to say that I wish every single day, like, you wouldn't be attached to tech the way that you are and the way that our generation is. I think it's a huge eye opener to like how much better life without tech is. And I mean, it is, you do miss your family a lot, but you are so happy like where you are, and you are so happy with like the people around you. And I just like, I would give anything to like be back on a boat without a phone, and with the people that I was with. I think that is like the biggest key for these relationships on the off-campus programs is not having tech, and I cannot stress that enough. And it's really not that hard at all. And it's you go home and you just like, you dread being back on like social media and on your phone. It's dreadful, like, really.
Hunter, I see a question that asks about the transition back to campus after being off campus. And I just think that any of us here would say the hardest part about going off campus is returning back. And I think that's for a few reasons. You spend time with a small amount of your peers, and then you're automatically integrated into this larger community. And I think that's overwhelming because Proctor life is busy and you may not get to see your people from your off campus as much as you'd like to. That was definitely part of it that was really hard for me. Another thing is the learning, like sitting through an hour class where you don't also get to like go run around in the river and stuff is difficult. I think all of these guys could speak to that as well. That being said, one of the things that Proctor's so great at is supporting you, and everyone understands that when you come back from a off-campus experience that it's a little rocky. Like your first few days are hazy for sure. Everyone knows that. There are a ton of faculty at Proctor who also went off campus when they were there, so they're going to help you out. Support is the biggest thing, but it's definitely hard. It's the hardest part.
Yeah, Chloe, go ahead.
Coming back from Euro, it's like kind of like this culture shock, like reverse. You're like, I'm not eating like amazing food every day. I'm not painting in a field and like taking a nap and going to like Saison's mountain. But like, and then coming back from Ocean, it's like I have to shower every day. Like, what is this? But it's definitely it takes like a couple weeks at least for me. But then you like kind of adjust to it and like enjoy like, you know, remembering those experiences and having those people, like those deep connections that you have with the people. And you also, on Ocean, it just surprised me like how much I learned without having any technology, like just picking people's brains, like my deckhands and the captain and like crew. It was really powerful.
Thank you. And so there's been a couple questions about like how many programs like typically do students take part of, and is it possible to do 2 programs in 1 year? But maybe you guys can share a little bit about like maybe your experience and or friends who maybe have gone on 2 experiences in 1 year, because it has happened before. Yeah, Jane. Yeah, Jane, you take it.
So I have gone on 3, and that's definitely on the more heavy side of off-campus programs. And I want to talk about one girl who went her senior year. She spent the fall on campus, and then in the winter went on European Art Classroom, and in the spring went on Mountain Classroom. And it's definitely rare, but it can happen if you have all the necessary credits to graduate with. And I think it's honestly a really incredible thing to do. Split your time 3 ways between 3 different incredible places in an academic school year. But I'd say for the most part, people don't go on 2 a year, but it's definitely possible.
The great thing about Proctor and having these off-campus programs is that you can create your learning experience in your classroom all 4 years. And whether that is you want to go off campus 3 times like some people, or 2, or just even once, or just do a service program in the summer, like that's completely up to you, or not at all, and that's totally normal too. I mean, again, like I think it's really, really pushed from everybody here to go on one, but I mean, like it's not like you have to go, or it's not like you're frowned upon for not going on one either. But I think that again, like Proctor, the best thing about it is that you can design your experience, and like people will say that to you in like your freshman year, and like you really, really gotta like get a hold on that and how cool that is, and just take that and like run with it and just make it the best experience that you can, because you can do anything really that you set like your mind to with your learning and your education at Proctor.
Yeah, and there's another question that just popped in here, but is there anyone that doesn't get to go on a program if they want to go on a program? Like, can that happen? Or maybe you guys can speak to that a little bit. Yeah.
I think, well, for the most part, anyone could do it. I think the only exception is if you get yourself in trouble. So, yeah, if you're coming to Proctor and you want to do an off-campus program, don't get in trouble, or else you won't be able to do an off-campus program that you might want to. But besides that, you're totally able to do an off-campus program. If you're a sophomore, junior, or senior, doesn't matter. It's for anyone, as really it's just a choice that each student makes if they want to do one or not.
Yeah, Tag.
Is there a chance that when you off-campus program, you don't get on your first try, you get onto the wait list? And I'm speaking from experience when I say this, because when I applied for Ocean Classroom, I did not get on right away, and I was really upset, but I kept my name on that wait list. And things change all the time. People change their minds and other things happen. So just like make sure that you just keep trying and you'll get it. So
No, that's great. And so is there anyone that wants to just share like one story or something funny that might have happened? Yeah, Jane.
Okay, I want to share a story about mountain. So on solo, we're able to send each other letters. So the instructors come around twice a day to check on us, and we like build a little cairn, and they come and knock it down, and that's how we know we're all right. But we can send each other letters as well. And so one morning, I got 2 letters, and I opened one of them, and it was from a girl named Charlotte, and she said that she woke up and was really, really scared because a bunch of deer were running past her tarp. And I, of course, laughed because she's a really, it's Charlotte, she's funny. And then I opened up the next letter, and it was from a kid named Sean. And his letter said that when he woke up, there were a bunch of deer right outside his tent, and that he screamed, and they all ran away. And so they obviously went and ran past Charlotte's tarp. And so it's really funny thinking about on solo, we're all so close together, even though it seems like we're worlds apart. But that was definitely one of the funnier things that happened on an off-campus program.
I love it. I love it. Is anyone else want to share anything unique that happened to them while on a trip? Yeah, V, I guess you go first.
I'll make it short because it's another mountain one. But on our ISGE, which Tommy explained before, where all the students are alone without the instructors, our very first day, it happened to be Valentine's Day, was also torrential downpour in the desert, which you might not expect to happen, but it does. And we were walking through like a foot of water in our rain pants and our raincoats, and we were all alone, and it was freezing cold. And Sean, who Jane mentioned, like could have had hypothermia. We don't really know. And we were like trying to put up a tent so that we could look at the map all together without getting it soaking wet. And it was just 2 of us went off to see past the fog, which was dangerous, and then we were all freaking out. They came back, and eventually we just decided it was safest to walk back and stay the night at flat ground. But that was a really, 1, funny experience, 2, kind of emotional, and 3, probably the most important part of my mountain experience, because I learned like what being a leader is, how to like see the good in a bad situation, and then that sometimes turning back is okay. So yeah.
Awesome. And is one more person want to share? I think we have time. PJ.
Okay, so on ocean, I just think it's so cool because like I didn't understand how beautiful it is until like being there and having my own experience. But people told me like you have to get up for like any dolphins that people are like seeing, or like the sunsets, because it's like truly like the most magnificent thing in the whole entire world. But like, and it was unreal. But my favorite thing was like in the night, like at night, it was like really cool because like you kind of being like this pitch black, and like you can kind of tell like a horizon, but like you would be traveling and you would look over the side of the boat, and there'd be like bioluminescence like just like popping up everywhere, and it looks like little like stars like twinkling. And then since you're like in the middle of the ocean pretty much with like no lights around you, you look right up at the stars, and it's like the clearest like stars ever. So it was really cool going back and forth being like, oh my gosh, like they're everywhere. It's so beautiful, it's so pretty.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you guys. Thanks all the panelists. Thank you for those who are listening. Our next event is going to start at 7:30. I believe you need to log out of this and register and log into the next one. But we hope you enjoyed it, and I guess we can all just give big waves and thank you.